Brennan is now missing. She was last seen in Shelby Oaks.
There is a dark and deeply haunted history in the woods of Shelby Oaks. My sister isn't the first to go missing.
Shelby Oaks, the first feature film from Chris Stuckmann, a film critic turned filmmaker, is now officially out. It's about damn time. And this is actually a movie I helped back when it was still on Kickstarter. And then it was like, all right, it's getting delayed. Okay, it keeps getting delayed. Okay, it keeps getting delayed. And then it came out that Neon and Mike Flanagan were going to put money into it and get it theatrically released. And I was like, that's really cool. That's awesome. So I now officially seen it. And was my money worth it? Well, we'll see. So the film is about this woman who is part of a kind of like ghost hunting crew, like Ghost Adventures, like it was called the Paranormal Paranoids, I believe. And she goes missing. So it's up to her sister, who is our main character of the film, to try and search for her, because at this point it's like the police and investigators aren't really doing anything, like kind of like cases a little bit closed. So now she's like, all right, well, if you the kind of like you want something done right, you got to do it yourself kind of thing. But it leads her into something mysterious and evil. So, like I said, I helped back this film on Kickstarter, and was it worth it? You know, I liked it, but didn't love it. And we'll go through the reasons why. The good off the bat is the mystery is interesting. It feels like somebody said it right on the head. They nailed it. It was like Blair Witch Project meets Hereditary. They nailed it, because you can definitely see Stuckmann's like influences in here, like stuff that he grew up on, like Blair Witch Project or like M. Night Shyamalan stuff, and even sometimes Flanagan stuff, who is executive producing this. So you kind of feel like he's, mimicking a lot of his influences, which is fine. And the mystery here of, okay, what actually happened, I think is interesting until you get towards the end. But for the most part, the mystery is pretty interesting. The scares, it definitely has a lot of buildup, and I think a lot of them were pretty effective. They definitely feel like stuff Flanagan would do. And, because there was stuff like from, Flanagan's like Haunting of Hill House or some of his other films like Oculus, that I was like, all right, that was really genuinely scary and creepy. Like in Hill House, every time they're in the house, a lot of scenes, you'll see a ghost just there. And it became a game where, try to find that stuff. But, with here, there were some pretty cool things they did. And a lot of it kind of in the background. While there is the jump scare noises, which is a little hit and miss, for the most part, the scares, I think, do a really good job. They definitely took the time to make sure they didn't, mimic like a lot of the just like horror movies that just rely on a jump scare or a jump scare noise. They definitely don't do that. So I'm glad to see that. Now, the kind of iffy parts. The movie jumps from professionally filmed to found footage a lot. And the first like 10 minutes before that we probably get the titles, the first 10 minutes, it was kind of like all right, you're setting up this kind of documentary style where it's like, it's telling you what happened, that this is the only information we've gotten. So it's like, all right, that's kind of cool. But I feel like that wasn't really needed. You could have potentially done something different. Like, it starts out with kind of her on the search, and then she kind of looks back at the original, like, stuff. So it is telling us, like, okay, this is what happened, and there's nothing here. Where, because this documentary kind of thing that they do, we're introduced to a kind of documentary team in the beginning of the film, and then they don't pop up until the very end of the film. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot you were here kind of thing. So I felt like that part could have been a little reworked if they wanted to do something like found footage. I feel like they were trying to do stuff like Sinister did, where it was a professionally shot film, but in order to solve this mystery of what is going on, they have these found footage tapes, and they use these Super 8 tapes, and they use that to drive the plot. But with this, they kind of drop it here, and while it does help serve the plot, they could have taken a different avenue instead of this like documentary kind of thing they do. And another thing is, I did hear that the original draft of this was supposed to be all found footage. And I feel like there were times where that could have been cool, but then at the same time, I'm like, I don't know about that, because I like how, main character sister, it's Mia. Her sister, Riley, was a part of this, ghost hunting crew. And like, she was invested with, filming and camera stuff, but Mia is not. So I like that, dynamic difference. So there is that. But another thing is, some character decisions from Mia specifically are a little questionable. Mainly there is a scene, I won't say like stuff that happens, but she goes to a prison at night, which is actually the Shawshank prison, which that was kind of cool. At night, she investigates some stuff, and some crazy stuff happens, and then she immediately drives to a like an amusement park at night, like immediately. And it's like I don't know. I would have waited until maybe sunrise, but at the same time, like, people could have saw her. But then at the same time, like, they established that, all like the police or investigators, they aren't covering this because they found literally nothing. So, and they established that. So it's like, okay, you could have done this during the day. The prison one, I get it, because even if it's like an abandoned prison, there's still going to be, there still could be, guards and stuff like that. But when it came to her immediately driving to the amusement park at night, it was like I understand, like, you could have waited until sunrise for this. So there's some spots in there. And also there were some movies, especially when it got to the end, where I was like, okay, now you're like this film, now you're like this film, now you're like this film. So it definitely felt like they had a blueprint, and then they were filling it with all these different films, like Hereditary, like Blair Witch, like Sinister, even at times maybe something like Rosemary's Baby. I won't say how, but watch the film. So at the end of the day, overall, I liked it, but I didn't love it. It definitely feels like those movies that I mentioned. The first 10 to 15 minutes are a bit iffy because of that documentary kind of feel, and the fact that they kind of dropped that through the rest of the film. But it picked up from there. I felt the mystery was engaging. It was interesting until around the climax, when it started becoming a little too familiar with a lot of other movies. I was like, oh, okay, it's like this film, like this film. And it also became a found footage movie just because it showed found footage. And so I think for Stuckmann's first film, especially from him being a film critic turned filmmaker, he mostly succeeds, and was an enjoyable movie to watch with some flaws that could have been reworked or taken out. But then again, this movie is 90 minutes, and it kind of feels like, all right, we have this amount of time to do this stuff where it's like, okay, this part here, like with the documentary stuff, that could have been reworked, or, you know, some character decisions could have been rethought of. But you know what? I've been seeing a lot of hate for this one, and I definitely disagree. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it, but at the end of the day, I did like it. So I give it about a mid-average, you know, especially for its first outing, because not everybody can have home runs on their first films, like people like Jordan Peele, you know, but for his first outing, he mostly succeeds. And, you know, it's cool to see, you know, a YouTuber that I watched a lot of growing up finally make it to the big leagues. Now let's see what Markiplier does.
Please, baby.